Jole chuntaja tele chultaja.
Jimmy Chun, Taj Mahal, Telly.
Let's try something different. How about the characters? Probod, Proshanto, Probir, Protap, Uma, Tapati, Bingo.
Prochno, Prosecco, Prolaps, Uschi, Tutti, Bingo.
I give up. Das ist so ein Scheiß, ey.
Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Dennis, the Bodymeister.
And after a full year of honoring the 100th birthday of legendary Bengali filmmaker Satyajit Ray, we finally arrived at our last review, at least for now. This marks the 15th film of Ray that we have reviewed this year. You can find all of these reviews, including the ones that we did prior to that, in the link above.
Shaka Proshaka, or Branches of the Tree, is a 1990 Bengali language drama that was written and directed by Satyajit Ray. It stars Ajit Banerjee, Haradan Banerjee, Soumitra Chatterjee, Dibankar Dey, Ranjit Malik, Lily Chakravarti, Mamata Shankar, Soham Chakraborty, Pramod Ganguly, and Pradeep Mukherjee.
You and your tongue twisters. Anyway, what's the movie about?
Ananda Majumdar was an upright small-town businessman who has earned money and respect the hard way, and gone on to become a social icon of honesty and integrity. When he falls ill, 3 of his 4 sons visit him along with their families. But as much as they love their father for his virtues, their opinions clash, and it becomes evident that they have not been able to emulate him in their lives.
Branches of the Tree is one of the few Satyajit Ray films that's not based on any pre-existing story, but one where Ray himself has written the screenplay. If you watch it with his own life story in mind, it's very easy to assume that he did base the 70-year-old father, who just suffered a heart attack at the beginning of the story, on his own life. Ray was almost 70 years old himself when he made the movie, and he too suffered a heart attack a few years prior to that. But it must also be noted that Ray came up with most of the story many years before, when he was still in very good health.
Still, there's certainly a lot of Ray in the character of Ananda Majumdar, a lot of his own beliefs and ideals. And you also can't deny that Ajit Banerjee has a really striking resemblance to him.
This is certainly one of the bleakest, if not the bleakest film of Ray. Through this one family, specifically the 4 adult brothers, it depicts a world, contemporary Bengal, that is defined by corruption. Every character seems to be unhappy, be it about being forced to stay at their father's place, about their job, about their marriage.
Like we said in our reviews of Gunashotru and also Agantuk, Shaka Proshaka is driven by dialogue, by people just talking. Ray wasn't that healthy and fit anymore to be able to shoot more elaborate scenes, and so all of these stories were confined to a very small amount of settings, a few rooms really, with some exceptions of course.
And through the bulk of the characters brought together in Branches of the Tree, there are a lot of possibilities to rotate in regards to the dialogue. We see many different constellations of characters talking, beginning with Ananda and Proshanto.
They get the story going and give us a lot of background information on the family and the situation in the house by simply telling us. Ananda and Proshanto are sitting in the living room and Ananda gives us the whole exposition.
A technique that's used a few times in the course of the movie. During their talk, we are able to gather clues about what the next 2 hours might be about. Of course, we quickly realize that Proshanto, played by Soumitra Chatterjee in his last performance in a Ray film, has a mental handicap. Other than that, we learn how much things have changed in Ananda's house, how much time has passed since his sons left, and how lonely he's been feeling ever since.
And as soon as his sons arrive with their families after he's had his heart attack, we realize that none of them wants to stay. They're all entangled in either their corrupt and sleazy business or in gambling like Probot and Probir, or in trying to find themselves by rejecting the capitalistic society like Protap. Probot and Probir even try and succeed in persuading the doctor to tell them that it's alright to stay for just 1 week instead of 3.
Ray clearly wanted to juxtapose the 3 successful sons and the seemingly empty-handed 4th son, and their diverging ways of dealing with the sick father in opposition. The 2 female characters, Uma and Tapati, are kind of trapped in the middle. It's not like they don't know about their husband's dealings, but they don't know a way out. Things are just the way they are in these times.
Shaka Proshaka Shaka is very upfront. Things are outspoken in a way that really leaves no question marks. Everybody's supposed to understand it, so it's not a very subtle movie, which is fine, but I think that sometimes leads to a lack of profundity, of depth. There are a few factors that hinder the movie from being deeper.
On the surface, there's actually a lot I could connect to. What it means to have an ailing father, not knowing how things will turn out. And I also know what it's like to have a family member who suffers from a mental disability after an accident. Yet I have to be honest and say that it was quite difficult to get fully immersed into this film. One reason for that is what you just said. We're really not able to get this world. I hear and accept what the sons say, but somehow it's not really resonating with me.
Resonating is the word I was looking for. There's one scene that boiled that down for me. It's when Pratap walks into Prashanto's room and they talk, and then Pratap says, "In a way, you are better than us." And I know that that's right, but I couldn't feel it. And I think besides the straightforwardness of the movie that can lead to a lack of profundity, it's also the quantity of the dialogue. These characters really talk a lot, and it's not that hard to get lost in that.
It became kind of a chore at times, yes, but there are of course exceptions. This is a Satyajit Ray movie, and he certainly shows his brilliance in many scenes. For example, the one where Prabhat and Probir yell at each other at a table during lunch, and Prashanto repeatedly hits the table and thereby telling them to stop it. Or the picnic scene.
At first, you think this might be the moment that allows those bitter people some happiness. There's a glimpse of that when they revel in memories of their innocent and unclouded childhood, but it becomes apparent very quickly that that's not possible.
The characters and the relationship that worked the most for me is the unhappy marriage. Deepanka Dey as Probir and Mamata Shankar as Tapati. Interestingly enough, both actors are also playing husband and wife in Ray's last film, The Stranger.
I thought that every single one of the actors did a good job, and almost every single one got his or her moment to shine. The movie is kind of constructed that way, with two people talking in this place, two other people talking in that place.
I agree, but then again, so much of what the actors say feels kind of empty, which results in a lack of really emotional moments. The exception being a few scenes between Probir and Tapati, and the ending with Prashanto and his father. One of Ray's greatest skills always was to say much without making the characters say much, and Branches of the Tree works kind of in the opposite way, and therefore does not work that well. It's still a decent movie and it includes some great acting and some strong scenes, but I would definitely count it as one of Ray's weaker ones.
So, what would we say in German about Shaka Pro Shaka?
Auch wenn Satyajit Rays Brillanz immer mal wieder durchscheint und sich auch die Schauspieler keine Blöße geben, ist Ein Baum und seine Zweige, vor allem aufgrund der mitunter überladenen Dialoge und des fehlenden Tiefgangs, eines der schwächeren Werke des Großmeisters. I give Branches of the Tree 6 out of 10. It's more like 6.4, but I don't do that.
For me, it's 7 out of 10. It's more like 6.6, but I don't do that either. This is going to be some trivia, Jimmy.
Can't wait.
Did you know that over 500 years ago, Leonardo da Vinci wrote that all the branches of a tree at every stage of its height, when put together, are equal in thickness to the trunk? In other words, if a tree's branches were folded upward and squeezed together, the tree would look like one big trunk with the same thickness from top to bottom.
That's pretty awesome. I didn't know that.
And did you know that he was right? It has been proven in 2011.
Even better. So, what are your thoughts about Branches of the Tree? Leave a comment. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and also on Patreon, simply at TheJimmyCage.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at TheBuddyMeister.
And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all we have to tell.